So you've probably heard of the diary of a CEO, right? But here's the thing. The real secret to all that success isn't really about business in the way you might think. It's about mastering one thing, and one thing only, yourself. So today, we are going to unpack the very first, and honestly the most important pillar in Steven Bartlett's entire framework, the self.
And Bartlett kicks things off with this absolute classic from Da Vinci, which it sets the stage perfectly. The big idea here is that before you can achieve anything out there in the world, you first have to build mastery inside. In other words, your success is just a mirror, a direct reflection of how well you've mastered yourself. Okay, so what does that even mean, mastering yourself in the world we live in right now? You know, it's not just some nice, fluffy quote to stick on your wall. It's a real, actionable framework for your life. And luckily for us, Bartlett breaks it all down.
He gives us this concept he calls the 4 pillars of greatness. And you can think of these as the fundamental blueprint, like the load-bearing walls for building a truly remarkable life and career.
So what are they? We've got the self, then the story, the philosophy, and finally, the team. Now, all 4 of them are critical, for sure, but everything, and I really do mean everything, starts with that first one, the self. Why? Because it's the one thing you have 100% control over, and it's the foundation that everything else gets built on.
So, how do we actually start building that self-mastery in a practical way? Well, this is where it gets really interesting. Bartlett gives us this brilliant tool he calls the 5 buckets. It's a super simple, tangible way to check in, see where you stand, and figure out what you need to work on next.
And here they are. The idea is that your potential is basically just the sum of what's in these 5 buckets. The fuller they are, the more you can achieve, and frankly, the more believable your big ambitions become, not just to other people, but to yourself. It's as straightforward as that.
So let's break them down, one by one. First up, you've got what you know. That's your knowledge. Think of it as your raw input. Then there's what you can do with that knowledge. Those are your skills. This is where knowledge gets put into action. Third is who you know, your network, the people who can open doors for you. Fourth is what you have, your resources, stuff like time and money. And finally, number 5, what people think of you, your reputation, which is really the ultimate currency of trust.
Now, pay close attention to the flow here, because the order is absolutely critical. You cannot skip a single step. Just think about it for a second. You gain knowledge by reading a book on marketing. Then you apply it and build a skill by running a really successful social media campaign. That success gets you noticed, which helps build your network with other pros in the field. Through them, you might get access to resources, maybe a better job, or even some funding. And all of that, together, builds your reputation as someone who knows their stuff. See? It's like a chain reaction.
All right, so now that we have a framework for our external potential, let's look at what's going on inside. Let's talk about the internal engine that drives all of that potential, what Bartlett calls your self-story. What's the story you're constantly telling yourself about yourself? That right there is your self-story. It's that little narrator in your head that defines what you believe you're capable of. And here's the kicker. It drives every single decision you make, a lot of the time without you even realizing it's happening. And this is so crucial. Your self-story isn't built on wishful thinking or some positive affirmations you say in the mirror. No, it's built on evidence, hard evidence. Every single action you take, especially when you think nobody's watching, is another little piece of proof you're submitting to yourself about who you really are.
Let's make this super real. Just picture this. You're in the gym. It's the end of your workout, the very last set. You've got to get 10 reps. You get to number 9, and your muscles are just on fire, screaming at you to stop. Every single part of you wants to just drop the weight and be done.
So what do you do in that one moment? Do you dig deep, push through, and finish that final, agonizing rep? Or do you quit? That one tiny little choice, that is a powerful piece of evidence. It's telling your self-story whether you're the kind of person who finishes what they start or the kind of person who stops when things get tough. And that brings us to the foundation of all of this. I'm talking about the one thing that holds up both your buckets and your self-story. This is the absolute non-negotiable starting point for everything else.
It's really this simple. Your health is everything. You can't fill your knowledge bucket if you're too exhausted to even read a page. You can't build new skills if you're constantly feeling sick. You see, this isn't some kind of luxury. It is the absolute bedrock of your entire life. Your sleep, what you eat, your movement. If you neglect this, all the other pillars have absolutely nothing to stand on.
So, when you boil it all down, it comes to this. Your habits are your future. Self-mastery isn't some big mysterious quest. It's built in the small, everyday choices we make. It's the evidence you gather moment by moment. Every single day, you are writing your own story. So the only real question left is, what story are you going to write for yourself today?